G'day and welcome to Disc Golf Down Under. It's Matt here, and yes, it's time for another laser rangefinder review. I think with this video I might have more reviews of laser rangefinders for disc golf than any other channel on YouTube. Just let me know if you find another channel out there with more. So previously I've looked at the AFR GX2S and GX6F Pro, as well as the Bushnell LF600G. And these three were all budget-conscious, no-frills laser rangefinders. But today I'm looking at a top-shelf option, the MVP Parsec, and I'll compare it with the Bushnell Edge. So time to dive in with an unboxing and full hands-on review. So quick disclaimer, this rangefinder was sent to me by MVP Disc Sports to review, but they gave no conditions, and I'm free to say absolutely whatever I like. So big thanks to MVP for supporting Disc Golf Down Under and having the confidence in their product to give me the freedom to say what I like. Next, this is a longer review than normal, so if you want to jump ahead to a particular section, check the time codes in the video description down below. And as always with my reviews, I've had this Parsec now for just over 2 months and used it numerous times, putting it through its paces to build my opinions based on real life use. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get unboxing.
Nerd alert!
A parsec is a unit of length used to measure the large distances to astronomical objects and is approximately 3.26 light years or 30.9 trillion kilometers. The parsec unit is obtained by the use of parallax and trigonometry and is defined as the distance at which one astronomical unit subtends an angle of 1 arc second.
The Parsec comes in a box that has a photo of the device on the front. On the side there's some of the main specifications, including the maximum effective range of 2,600 feet, description of the device on the back, and a photo of what's included in the box. So opening up the box, we've got the case with the rangefinder inside, plus a few other included bits and pieces. So starting with the manual. The manual is quite clear to read. And some pictures there to describe how it works. We'll talk a bit more about the manual later, but generally it's pretty good. There's a clip, carabiner clip, made out of aluminium. Yes, that's not aluminum. And you can pop that onto your case and use that to attach it to your bag or your belt or whatever you like. Also included is a microfibre cloth for cleaning the lenses and a micro USB cable for charging up the device. The case itself, it's quite a good quality case. It's a semi-hard case, a little bit of flexibility in it. There's a belt loop on the back if you want to use it with a belt. And there's an elasticized strap that you can use to close it without the zip. There's also a zip as well, so that gives you a bit of extra security. Inside you'll find the rangefinder inside a plastic bag. The case has got some padding inside to protect the device, and I've got no concerns that this is going to protect the device very well on the side of my disc golf bag. Pulling the rangefinder out of its plastic bag, you can see it's got a rubberized feel on the side and some rubber pads on the top. Two lenses on the front, two buttons on top, and an eyepiece with a diopter adjustment on the back, and we've got a tripod mount on the front, which you don't see very often on a laser rangefinder. Little rubber flap there that we can open up, and there's a port there we can plug in our micro USB cable. We can then plug that into a computer or a USB charger to charge up our device. And I've found that I've used this on a number of rounds, about 3 or 4 rounds now, and it's still got a full charge. And that concludes our unboxing.
Okay, so now that we've got this little baby out of its box, let's look at the specifications of the Parsec rangefinder. So starting with its size, it's a 107 millimeters long, it's 73 millimeters high and 42 millimeters wide. It weighs 188 grams on its own, or 293 grams with the case and carabiner clip combined. It has an effective operating range from 3.5 meters or 10 feet up to 800 meters or 2,600 feet. It has 6 times optical magnification with a 24 millimeter objective lens and a 16 millimeter eyepiece. And the Parsec can be switched between 3 units of measure, feet, yards and meters. It has a rechargeable lithium ion battery built in, which can be recharged with the included micro USB cable. It has an operating temperature range from -20 to +50 degrees Celsius. It has an IP54 waterproof rating, which means it can handle dust ingress and a shower of rain. And it uses a Class 1 laser operating at 905 nanometers frequency with a reported accuracy of ± half a meter. The unit's easy to use with just 2 buttons up on top. There's a power button and a mode button. It has a ±3 diopter adjustment for people that don't have perfect vision. It has a magnetic mount and a 1/4" 20 tripod mount underneath. It has 9 different operating modes, including target locking with vibration or haptic feedback. And like all MVP accessories, it has a limited lifetime warranty, which excludes wear and tear and accidental damage, which you'd expect. So let's do a little bit of a comparison with the previous undisputed king of disc golf rangefinders, which was or is the Bushnell Edge. Now, I don't have the Bushnell Edge with me today for this review, but I have been able to borrow one previously from a friend and have a play around with it. So how does the Edge compare to the Parsec? Well, size-wise, they're very similar. The Edge is a couple of millimeters longer and a couple higher, but it's about 8 grams lighter. And the Bushnell is an all-plastic design with very little protection and comes with a lanyard. Compare this with the Parsec, which has rubber pads top and bottom, and also a rubberized feel all over. Now for the Edge, you can purchase an Exo Armor silicone cover, but that's an extra $10. The Edge uses a 3-volt CR2 battery, which is included instead of the rechargeable internal battery inside the Parsec. And surprisingly, the Edge doesn't come with a case, but you can spend about another $10 to $20 for a third-party case, which is very, very similar to the MVP Parsec case. Now the Edge has only a single mode and a single button. That's super simple to use. You just aim at the target, hit the rubberized button on top to get your straight line distance and vertical distance plus an angle up or down. And the Edge has an IPX4 waterproof rating, a 5-year warranty, and retails for around $150 US. Okay, so let's have a look now at how the Parsec functions. And my biggest tip, number 1, is RTFM, or read the manual first. This rangefinder has 9 different modes, which I'll run through shortly, but the manual gives you a reasonable description of what they do and how to use them. Now, the Parsec is like most other rangefinders out there. It has 2 buttons. The rear button is the power button, and you press it once to power it up. And if you don't press anything automatically, it will power off after 30 seconds. Now, to measure distance with the Parsec, you just pop the device up to your eye. You can, if you haven't got perfect vision like me, adjust the diopter until your image is in focus. You then turn the device on by pressing the power button at the back. You line your crosshair up with the object you want to measure, and then press the power button again, and you'll see the distance in the eyepiece. And alternatively, there's also a continuous scanning mode where you can hold down the power button and just move the crosshair over the target, and the distance will update constantly as you move the crosshair around. I mentioned earlier that the Parsec has 3 sets of units you can use, which is great: feet, yards, or the greatly superior metric meter. Now, strangely, how you change the units on this device is absent from the manual, but it's as simple as powering on the device with the power button and then holding down both buttons until you see the units change. If you don't have the units you want, let go, press and hold the buttons again until you get your desired units. And the beauty of this 2-button method is that you shouldn't be accidentally changing units during a round, which is one of my bugbears with some of the other rangefinders I've looked at previously. Next, let's dive into the operating modes on the Parsec, and there are 9 in total. So they are straight line distance, vertical distance, horizontal distance, speed, 2-point height measurement, closest distance, farthest distance, golf distance compensation mode, and lookback mode. So let's look at each of these modes, starting with mode 1, or straight line distance mode. And this works just like the description in that it measures a straight line distance from the end of the rangefinder to the object in the crosshair, and it doesn't matter if you're looking flat, at an angle, or straight up. It is the distance from A to B, and the display is nice and simple with just a crosshair and the distance shown above it. Mode 2 is vertical distance or VD mode, and in this mode you'll see the straight line distance above the crosshair, same as before, but in addition to that, below the crosshair you'll see two additional lines of information. And the first line is the height above or below you, and the second line is the angle in degrees with a symbol telling you if it's uphill or downhill. And I think this is the mode that most people will use for disc golf and is the default mode that I use. Mode 3 is horizontal distance or HD mode, and this is similar to VD mode except the number below the crosshair gives you the horizontal distance to the target. So basically with modes 2 and 3 the device is doing a little bit of trigonometry with sines and cosines of the rangefinder angle to convert the hypotenuse to either the opposite or adjacent side of the triangle. Mode 4 is speed or SP mode, and you can use this to measure the speed of objects heading directly toward you or directly away from you. It doesn't work on objects moving across your field of vision, and to use this mode you line up the crosshair, press the button, and then you keep moving the rangefinder to keep the object in the center of the rangefinder for at least 2 seconds. And it will continuously scan the object and then use some more mass to calculate the average speed of the target. And this is exactly how a police laser works. And I found it works okay on cars and bicycles up to around a range of 100 meters. And beyond this, the readings got a little bit unreliable, probably because I couldn't keep it on the target. And of course, the question everyone wants to know is, can you measure the speed of a throw? Probably not. I wasn't able to. Now, you need to keep the object in the crosshair for the 2 seconds, and you'd have to be really skilled to do this with a flying disc. I'm not saying it's impossible, but definitely difficult. If you want to measure throw speed, a radar gun is a much better alternative, which uses broader microwaves instead of a highly focused laser beam. Mode 5 is 2-point height measurement or HT mode, and you can use this to laze two targets, and the rangefinder will then tell you the difference in height between them, while it will also give you the straight line distance and angles to each target as well. Now, I guess this mode could be useful for maybe measuring the height of a tree or other obstacle. You can target the ground at the base of the tree, for example, and then the leaves at the very top, and the Parsec will tell you the difference in height between the two. Mode 6 is the closest distance or CL mode, and in this mode you hold down the power button while scanning, and the top reading will give you the current straight line distance as it always does, updating, but the bottom reading will show you the closest distance measurement during that scan. So this mode can be useful by starting behind and one side of the basket and then sweeping across the basket, and as long as you don't hit the ground in front, it should give you the distance to the target. Mode 7 is farthest distance or FA mode, and this is the opposite of the previous mode. It works exactly the same in that you hold the button down and the bottom reading will give you the farthest distance measured during the scan. And this mode can be useful when the basket is behind some trees and nothing else behind the basket. So you can scan across the basket and the farthest distance should hopefully be the basket if there's enough gaps through the trees. Moving on to mode 8, which is golf distance compensation mode, and it's indicated by a little flag on the left side of the display. And in this mode, you start by putting the crosshair on an object behind the basket, and then you hold the power button down to continuously scan. You then move the basket into the crosshair, and if the rangefinder locks onto the target, it'll vibrate, give you a bit of haptic feedback, and you'll get the straight line distance at the top and an adjusted distance below, which takes into account if you're throwing uphill or downhill. Now, I asked MVP if this mode was using a golf ball trajectory or a flying disc trajectory, and they said at the moment it's a ballistic golf ball trajectory, as the trajectory of a flying disc is more complicated to calculate. However, they are investigating this and hoping to tweak the algorithm to better suit flying discs in future. So well done MVP if they get this right. Finally, mode 9 is storage or lookback mode, and in this mode you can press the power button and then cycle through your last 20 measurements. Really handy if you took some measurements and then forgot the number. You can just cycle back through the memory instead of having to measure again. Okay, so that covers all the modes and how to use the Parsec. But there's one last thing, and that's how to recalibrate the angle measurement. And this is something that I haven't seen on other rangefinders, and I've noticed that sometimes two different rangefinders can give different angle measurements. So if for some reason your angle is not reading correctly, you can set your Parsec up on a tripod, use the lines on the side of the device to level it, and then reset the zero angle. So to do this, you go to HD mode, you then hold down the mode button until the display changes to CA for calibrate, and then hold the mode button down again to set your horizontal angle at 0. Now I checked my Parsec and it was bang on level straight out of the box, so it didn't require a calibration. Now, to test out the performance, I put the Parsec through the same series of tests that I previously did with the Boblov and the AFR rangefinders. Starting with minimum distance, I found that the Parsec operates down to a minimum distance of 3.5 meters or 11.5 feet. Next, using a tape measure, I measured out 5 meters, circle 1 at 10 meters, and circle 2 at 20 meters, and ranged from there to a flat wall. And here's how the Parsec performed. And what I found is that the 5 measurements at each distance were very consistent, within 6 centimeters. And this is way more consistent than any rangefinder I've tested previously. Now, accuracy was not great at the shorter distances, but it got better at the longer distances. It was almost bang on at 20. So next, heading out to my local disc golf course, and I worked through ranging a number of different targets. All Innova disc catcher baskets from 30 meters up to 230 meters with different obstacles in front of and behind the basket. And after playing around for a few minutes, my preferred way of using the Parsec is in the vertical distance mode, by placing the crosshair on the target and hitting the power button 3 or 4 times over 3 or 4 seconds. And I'll take the first reading and then use the other measurements as confirmation to check for a consistent distance. And I also take note of the vertical distance and whether that's above or below my current position. I've also tried the golf compensation mode, and it works really well if you first line up on a target that's clearly farther away than the basket. You then hold the power button down and move the crosshair over the basket and get your distance. And most times it locks onto the basket and gives a straight line distance plus an adjusted distance based on whether the target's above or below. I did find that this mode doesn't work well if you start closer to the basket or on an object such as a tree very close behind the basket. I did find that it worked quite consistently out to 150 meters or 500 feet. However, like other rangefinders I've previously reviewed, I found the Parsec doesn't work in this mode when there's nothing but sky behind the basket. It needs something farther away to start on. And for the final test, I've used the Parsec in a couple of events and tournaments. So first up, shout out to Camden Disc Golf and their 18-hole pop-up event. And secondly, at the 54-hole ACT Championships at Western Park in Canberra. Now, in the real world, I found the Parsec worked flawlessly. I used it mainly in vertical distance or VD mode, and it worked first time, every time, and measurements were consistent to within 1 meter. I've also tried the golf compensation mode with target locking, and it worked 80 to 90% of the time, but I did find some situation with trees around the basket that would cause the device not to lock. Okay, so what did I think of the Parsec? Well, compared to all the other rangefinders I've tried, this is easily my new favorite. The first thing that stands out with the Parsec is that the optics are so clear. I found with other rangefinders that the view through the eyepiece was a little fuzzy or hazy, or not quite in focus, but with the Parsec the image is crisp and clear, same as the Bushnell Edge. And I'm going to hazard a guess that the Parsec uses glass elements while the other rangefinders probably use cheaper plastic optics. Next, the Parsec is easy to use, like most others out there. One issue that I found with other rangefinders is that it's been too easy to accidentally change from meters to yards and vice versa. With the Parsec, that simply doesn't happen, as you have to hold down both buttons at the same time for a couple of seconds, and that's not easy to do accidentally. Now, no product is perfect, and I do have a few minor criticisms about the Parsec. Firstly, the manual is a little light on and could do with some more information. For example, there's no instructions on how to change from meters to yards to feet, and some of the descriptions of the different distances were not quite clear. I sort of had to try things out. Another criticism I have with the viewfinder itself is that for distances less than 50 meters, for some reason, the readings are shown to 2 decimal places, which would imply centimeter level accuracy, but in practice at longer distances, measurements are jumping around plus or minus half a meter. So at best, 1 decimal place is really all that's needed. And 1 less digit on the screen will be easier to read, so maybe MVP will tweak this in future versions. Another criticism, if you can call it that, is being spoiled for choice with the 9 modes. I think it's great that the user has all these different options, but it does make it a little harder to use, and you definitely need to read the manual to understand everything. For me, it wasn't intuitive flicking through the modes, and the Lookback storage mode had me really confused first time before I read the manual. I thought I'd entered some special calibration mode or something and was totally confused. Okay, next to address the elephant in the room, what about the price? Well, the Parsec is retailing for $179 US, and in comparison, the Bushnell Edge retails for around $150. But for that extra $30, you get a high quality case and an inbuilt rechargeable battery with 9 operating modes that you don't get with the Edge. Now, I had a look around and I couldn't find any retailers in Australia selling the Parsec yet. It's only been out a few months, but the price converts to around 260 Aussie dollars if you buy it from the US. There you go, an in-depth review of the MVP Parsec laser rangefinder. And this is my new favourite and I think undisputed champ of disc golf rangefinders. If you want the best, this is it. And I'll be giving up my trusty Boblov, and the MVP Parsec is now clipped to my bag. Again, big thanks to MVP for sending me the Parsec to review. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about the Parsec? Do you think it's better than the Edge, or is there something about the Edge that allows it to keep its crown? Well, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.